In this lesson, we'll learn how to set up a local development environment so we can install WordPress. This is wordpress.org, which is where you can go and start to download and use WordPress as a content management system or a software that will allow us to build and manage a website. But before we get started with WordPress, we need some software in order for WordPress to be able to work. So we're going to install a server and a database, which are going to be really important to allow us to process the kinds of technologies something like WordPress uses. It needs that server to process some of the languages that it's built on. And we're going to be working locally, meaning working on our own computer rather than paying for hosting and having to set up things like a domain name and everything like that. It's much simpler and it's also free. And not only that, it's very safe because if you break anything, it's not live on the site. And you can also edit your site to your heart's content and no one can see it until you want people to be able to see it. And what we're going to be using to install that software we need is called XAMPP. It's a package of software that's going to install everything we need to run WordPress. Now, if you don't know what a server is or a database or anything like that, we'll get a better idea of what that is as we go along. The most important thing is that we have that installed in order for WordPress to work. So from here, I'm just at apachefriends.org, which I've included with our project files. If you go to our project files, I'll just show you where this is. It's in that referenced files folder under links and recommended plugins. And under the first section, there's some links and it'll tell you where to go to download XAMPP. And from here, you'll just want to make sure you download the right package for your operating system. XAMPP is cross-platform, meaning it works on Windows, Linux, and OS X. And it's also completely free, so it's an excellent choice. Now, once you download the package or the installer that you need for your platform, I'm just going to go ahead and pull this up. It's going to ask you to select the components you want to install. And I recommend installing everything unless you're really low on space or something like that. Then you don't have to install all of this, but it has some really helpful things as a dedicated FTP server, FileZilla, things like that. But at the very minimum, you need Apache, which is our server. You need MySQL, which is going to allow us to create databases, and we need PHP-MyAdmin, which makes it much easier for us to do some of the things we need to do for WordPress to work. From there, you'll just want to press Next, and you want to leave it in the root folder. You don't want to move this installation folder because one of the most common issues if you're not getting something to work with a server or local development environment is the permissions for a folder or a file, meaning the ability to do things like create new files, edit existing files. You need all of the permissions for your computer to be able to do that without you doing anything. It just does that in the background, and if it can't do that, you're going to get some errors. So you might see that, and one of the easiest ways to make sure you have the most permissions is by leaving it in that root folder. If you're using a Mac, you can leave it in the applications folder, etc. Then you'll just want to follow the instructions for the rest of the installer, and I'll show you where we can get to where we need to be once you have that installed. I'm just going to open up a Windows Explorer window, or if you're on a Mac, you want to go to your applications or wherever you installed XAMPP. And from there, I installed it in my C drive, so I'm going to go there, and you'll see this little folder called XAMPP. And we want to open XAMPP, and we have all the files that are necessary for the server and MySQL to run. You can see it looks like there's a ton here, but really there's only a couple folders here that we need to work with. And what we want to do is we want to open what's called the control panel. So I'm going to scroll to the bottom here, and you can see we have XAMPP-control.exe, which is what we want to run. Now, I believe the first time you install XAMPP, it'll give you the option to launch that control panel the first time, or you can come here in your XAMPP folder and click to open that And I'm just going to go ahead and minimize this. This is our control panel because in addition to installing it, we want to make sure that our server and MySQL is running. And you can do that through the control panel. All you need to do is just come over here to this little section that says Actions, and you want to press Start to start whatever service you need. And we need Apache here, which is our server, and then MySQL, which will allow us to create databases. Once again, you can see I already have mine running. So once you have it running, if you need to stop it and restart it for whatever reason, sometimes that can help solve some common errors you might see. You can just press stop and then press start to start it once again, and just make sure they're green and you're not getting any kind of errors. If you do get an error, one of the most common issues you might run into is that the port number you're using might already be in use by another service or application. For example, if you have another server installed on your computer, or if you're using a mail client for email or something like that, sometimes those can conflict with these ports. So you'll want to change whatever port Apache is using so it can be free to do whatever it needs to do to run our website. In that same links.rtf folder, I'll go ahead and open that up. I added a little section here that'll allow you to troubleshoot just in case you run into that error. It'll make it a little bit simpler. You can follow this link, and at the very bottom, a user on Stack Overflow, which is a great website for solving common issues with web questions. He posted some great instructions to be able to solve that step by step, so you'll just want to follow those and change that port number if that's your issue, if it gives you an error saying that that port's already being used. Or if that link isn't working for you, you can also use a search engine and change the port number XAMPP, which is this title right here, and that can also help you solve that error as well. So now that we've installed XAMPP and we have our services running, we have Apache and SQL running, in our next lesson we're going to learn how to set up a MySQL database so we can get ready and start to install WordPress.